Let's now bring you some updates from the situation in Europe, which continues to be the worst affected continent from this virus. With more than 60,000 deaths, Europe's death toll accounts for more than 70% of the deaths recorded worldwide. France, Spain and Italy continue to be the worst affected nations in the continent from coronavirus. Let's now begin by telling you about Italy. The country recorded around 542 cases in the last 24 hours, bringing the total death toll to more than 17,600. Italy continues to remain the worst-hit country in the world. Nearly 60 million people are now under a complete lockdown in the country. Meanwhile, the Italian government has ruled that charity migrant ships will not be allowed to dock at Italian ports, as they are not safe. This means that migrants rescued at sea can no longer disembark in Italy. Charities rescuing migrants have condemned Italy's decision to close down all its ports. According to estimates, nearly 3,000 migrants have landed in Italy so far this year. Moving on to Spain now. The country's daily death toll rose for the first time in 5 days. The country recorded 757 deaths in the last 24 hours. But authorities believe that there is still some hope of the lockdown being eased. Officials are currently working on a plan to lift some of the restrictions in the country. Moving on to France now, the country has crossed the 10,000 death mark, becoming the fourth country to do so. According to sources, France is likely to further extend its lockdown beyond April 15th. French President Emmanuel Macron will address the nation again next week. Meanwhile, the pandemic has plunged the country into a recession. In its worst performance since 1945, France's economy shrunk around 6% in the first quarter of 2020. Even in Switzerland, the cases continue to rise, with the number of infections rising to 23,280. Switzerland has now recorded around 895 deaths so far. Emergency measures in the country have been extended by a week to April 26th, but could be eased before May. Meanwhile, the European Union is currently dealing with its worst crisis since its foundation. The president of the European Union's top science body has now resigned, citing frustration over the bloc's response to coronavirus. Mauro Ferrari has even accused the bloc of institutional resistance and political infighting. But even as the bloc stares at an economic crisis, the European Union finance ministers have failed to agree over a relief package for fighting coronavirus-stricken economies. The talks were stalled after a record 16 hours. The North-South divide on corona bonds continues to expose the deep divides within the bloc. The feud between Italy and the Netherlands over the terms of the loans is delaying the release of the economic aid package worth almost €500 billion. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez even went ahead to warn that the bloc might fall apart if a solution is not found soon. Let's now bring you the updates from India. Taking COVID-19 head-on, India in the last 24 hours has taken several far-reaching measures to tackle this pandemic. But let's get you up to date from where India stands as of now. The number of infections in India is nearing the 6,000 mark, and the figure currently stands at 5,734. A total of 166 people have lost their lives due to the coronavirus. For 6 days straight now, close to 500 cases have been reported daily. In Uttar Pradesh, the most populous Indian state, 103 COVID-19 hotspots have been identified and completely sealed. Sealing will only take place within certain hotspots in 15 districts, which have shown a high viral load. Residents in these hotspots will not be allowed to go out even to buy groceries or medicines, and supplies such as food, etc. will be procured only through home deliveries. Once again, we at WION would like to remind our viewers that even in these sealed-off areas, the essential services will continue to be available. So please do not panic. Home deliveries will be operational. In fact, the state government has started a helpline number for more clarity. Residents of the 15 sealed districts can order essential items at home by calling the number 112. We repeat, you can order essential services by calling 112. Police officials have also been asked to increase the frequency of patrolling in these districts to ensure that people remain inside their homes. The Uttar Pradesh Chief Secretary has said that anyone who breaks these rules will face consequences. Acting on similar lines, the Delhi government has also decided to seal off 20 COVID-19 hotspots. No one will be allowed to enter into or exit from these hotspots. The government has assured residents that the supply of essential services will remain uninterrupted. With close to 600 confirmed cases and 9 deaths, the national capital has been severely affected by the pandemic. Prime Minister Narendra Modi today also held an all-party meeting to discuss the present situation. Sources say that the Prime Minister has hinted at extending the lockdown beyond April 15th. Several state governments have pressed the centre to extend the lockdown, deeming it necessary to contain the spread of this virus. The Prime Minister has called the present situation in India a social emergency. Authorities have acted swiftly to control the situation. Rajasthan's Bhilwara model has been implemented in these hotspots. This means that no one except for paramedics and healthcare workers is now allowed to go out of their homes. Remember, the Bhilwara district in Rajasthan had been put under a complete lockdown on 20th March. This was after a high number of cases was reported and identified in the area, including doctors and other medical staff members who tested positive for COVID-19. The measures have now proven to be very effective in the region in containing the virus. Only one new case has been reported in the Bhilwara district since March 30th. Apart from a lockdown, masks have now proven to be quite effective in containing this virus. Nations which have made masks mandatory have shown a steady flattening of the curve. The Czech Republic is a case in point. Keeping this in mind, governments in Delhi, Uttar Pradesh, Jammu and Kashmir, Ladakh and Mumbai have also made masks a must while going out. The Indian Supreme Court, in an interim order, has now directed the central government to make all COVID-19 tests free of cost. The court has now told the central government to ensure that the directive is implemented in all government-run and private laboratories. The cost of one coronavirus test kit at a private lab was earlier capped at around 4,500 rupees. Making the tests free of cost would certainly increase the number of people who come forth to take these tests. All these measures were announced in light of a sudden spike in the number of cases.